Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I am so sorry that I have been missing in action for so long. This sculpture took me an age with all its teeny tiny little bits, and then I did an awful lot of procrastinating thereafter about making the video. I'm very sorry, but I'm here now. Here is my Halloween sculpture. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to start off with my incredibly accurate method of measurement, which is draw lines, cut down, and squeeze it in until it fits. You could do it the proper way by using rulers and stuff like that, but my method is wing it. Then you're going to use way too much glue, have to find an old paintbrush and then try and sort of spread it around and then sort of jam it in there and wiggle it about until it's stuck. That's generally how I did all of the shelves for this little box. So I decided that I didn't want like these three liney bits. I hacked at it for quite a while and then realised that that wasn't going to work, so I just took a sander to it. So if you get this box and you don't want those bits on, just use a sander, because I almost took my fingers off trying to get them off. And then it was on to adding the polymer clay. I did a lot of cheating in this first section by using moulds, because this is a big project and I did not want to spend ages, I don't know, sculpting all that faffy, pretty stuff when I had perfectly good moulds. So literally all I did is I jammed some very, very well kneaded clay into it and then sort of gently pulled them out, and then using a bit of bacon bond just stuck everything down. Made this process really, really quick. You can hand sculpt it, but by all means, but I felt like being lazy. Once I filled in all the little holes that I'd done when I took off like the latch, I put the whole thing into the oven for its first bake. I did this so that whilst I was working on the inside, I couldn't squish what I'd done on the outside. Just saving the progress. Then it was on to making a base. I've got this cork board. Now, polymer clay does not stick to cork for love nor money. So I'm literally going to cover it in foil and then cover it in masking tape so that the clay will stick to the masking tape, not to the cork. But cork is actually really cheap. This is just one of those oven pan protector your worktop things. I'm wonderful at describing stuff, aren't I? I'm so sorry. I jammed the coffin into the base just to give me like a general placement of where I wanted the coffin in the final piece. In theory, this is a great idea and it would have worked if I had just stuck with the original plan, but me being me, I decided to add a character halfway through and hadn't actually thought about any of it. So I end up having to move the coffin later. But generally, if I was not going to add the character, this would have been the placement for the coffin in the final piece. So generally, this is a good idea, just not for this sculpture. If you haven't figured out, I am making a little cauldron for my apothecary. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Witch pharmacy. I just used a foil ball and I covered that in polymer clay, and then I'm using a ball stylus to just whack the heck out of it so it's got a nice texture to it, and then I'm literally just going to stick it down to the sculpture using a cocktail stick. I do also use some jewellery making jump rings. I don't even know where I got these little jump rings from, but they make great handles, so I used those. You can't have a witchy pharmacy, because that is now what it is called, without spell books. So literally I just ran my polymer clay through the thickest setting on my pasta machine and then sort of folded it over and then made a ton of tiny little books. It's not really a ton, I made 6 I think. But I made some. I'm just exaggerating. I'm going to make a tiny little broomstick by whittling down this lollipop stick? No, it's a dowel. By whittling down this dowel and then just adding a blob of clay on the bottom and shaping it until I'm happy with its broomstick shape, really. I kind of made a jalapeno and then used a pin tool to create a texture that looks like the hay, I guess. I guess that's what they're made out of. I don't really know what an old broomstick is made of. It is at this point where I completely deviated from my original plan. Originally, I was just going to make a nice diorama of a witch pharmacy. But no, my brain halfway through the project went, Sarah, you need to add somebody in there. You need to make a character. So I went, okay. And I started making this teeny tiny stool, which I covered myself in glue and I stuck myself to everything. And this stool became the bane of my life. It becomes a very unstable stool by the end of the sculpture, but I hide it well. So yes, I made the tiny little stool. I waited for it to dry, and then I am going to build a character on that little stool. Now, any sane person will understand that a tiny bit of wood glue and some matchsticks are not going to hold up a polymer clay sculpture. But I guess I didn't think that through at the time. These are leftover milliputt mushrooms from a previous project. I think it was my dragon backflow incense burner that I did quite some time ago. I keep everything. So I'm literally just going to jam those into the sculpture. If you hadn't noticed, I've actually not stuck anything down to my sculpture, and that's so that I can take it all apart and paint it separately, just to try and make my life a little bit easier. And this is the bit where I decide to make a character. This is his little body. I just made like a cute characteristic little body, something that you might see out of a cartoon kind of thing. It's very cute. And then I'm going to try and stick it to a stool. This is where I ran into the very first issue. My little character obviously wouldn't just stand on the stool, so I drilled a hole and then stuck a bit of armature wire through it, and the idea was, you know, stick the little body onto the stool through the armature wire so it was a bit more stable. So I was trying to think it through. And then I thought I'll start adding a few details like the little feet and the clothes and all that sort of stuff. And to begin with, it all works out fine. It looks pretty stable because I've made the legs on the stool slightly longer than they need to be so that I can jam them into the base of the sculpture. That was the idea, to try and keep it stabilised. It doesn't work. Just say that now. It doesn't work. During the baking process, the whole thing is going to fall down and break. And I'm going to have to fix it off screen. Yeah, so fun. Oh, while I'm at it, if you see any of this grey clay, this is Cos Clay. I'm using that for fabric areas, you know, that sort of stuff, so that I can keep it nice and flexible, because Cos Clay, when it bakes, stays kind of like rubbery. It makes my life a lot easier. I can't break it when I bash it, and I'm so glad I do, because it's going to fall over in the oven. Now that his little body is finished, I'm going to move on to the head. To do that, literally the same process, tiny little ball of foil, and then I'm going to cover that in some liquid Sculpey and then in some more polymer clay. I'm going to use slightly thicker clay because I intend to carve out a pumpkin face as I would with a normal pumpkin. So I need some extra clay to be able to do that. I also am going to stick in a bit of armature wire so that his little head will stay in the little body. And then it's on to turning it into a little pumpkin. After making such a heckin' cute pumpkin face, I realised that he needed a heckin' cute hat to go with it. So I did that by making a Cos Clay donut for the rim of the hat. Ordinarily, I would have put a little bit of armature in there, maybe a bit of cardboard or some mesh or something like that, but I feel like at this size it didn't need that. I wish I kind of had, because once again it's going to fall over in the oven and part of that hat is going to get a little bit smooshed. But you're not going to notice it because it's the side that's facing the coffin, so I hid that as well. Oddly enough, I was having a little bit of trouble with getting this little character to just stay on the stool, so I stuck a little bit of armature wire into the sleeve and attached it to the cauldron, you know, in the hopes that that would stabilise it. It's not going to, but that's what I do anyway. And then I literally, using Cos Clay, just add in a load of decorations, and this is where Whisp got his name, from that tiny little wisp that I put on the hat. I just felt like it suited him. He became Whisp at that point. Oh look, foreshadowing. It's gonna fall over loads. No, I just carry on. It's like I'm not even thinking about it. Now that Whisp is fully made and is precariously standing on his stool, I am going to make a crystal ball. I could have cheated and made this a lot easier and just used a marble. But no, I decided I was going to make it. So I'm using a little bit of Sculpey translucent clay, and I'm adding some alcohol inks, just a bit of pink, a bit of purple, and the normal translucent. And then I'm going to mix them together, but not fully mix them, to try and create like a quartzy crystal effect. I kind of managed it. I'm not sure if there is a better way to do it. If there is, please tell me down in the comments, but I don't generally dabble in coloured clay, but this does actually work out quite nicely. Once it's baked, it looks quite cool. I like it. To continue my theme of heckin' cute, I am going to make a teeny tiny telescope. To do that, I'm literally using 3 matchsticks to create a tripod, and I'm gluing that all together with UV resin because I've got no patience. I didn't want to wait for the wood glue to dry. That is literally the only reason that I've used it. And then I am going to create the actual body of the telescope using some Cos Clay. I'm going to fill that up with a little wooden dowel and then just continue to build layer upon layer until it looks like a cute telescope. Now I want to introduce you all to Dave. Dave is a little monster that lives in the top of Wisp's cabinet. Dave helps Wisp with all his spell needs and finds foresty stuff and brings it back to Wisp. He's named Dave because I name absolutely everything Dave when I don't know what to name it. But yeah, once I finished making Dave, cute, I put absolutely everything into the oven. And then I spent quite a long time fixing everything when it came out. So now you might notice that Wisp has a slightly flatter hat on one side where he fell over in the oven, and the stall is now held together with hopes, dreams, sweat, blood, tears, and UV resin. But yeah, then it was on to painting. I'm using a mixture of different paints, some Citadel, some Vallejo. There's lots of different paints. I will list them all down in the description below, so if you want to know exactly what paints I used, they'll all be there. I'm just adding a tiny little bit of copper paint to my fingers and then sort of rubbing over all of the raised areas of my sculpture, just to give it a tinge of copper rather than, fully copper everything. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, I don't remember watching you make these, and you'd be right, I didn't record it. But I made tons of tiny little polymer clay eyeballs, and then I hand painted every single one of them individually so that I could stick them in this tiny little jar and then fill it with UV resin to make it look cute, creepy. Now, this is the bit where you're going to go, Sarah, I don't remember seeing you make these teeny tiny polymer clay bottles either. And I'm going to say no, again, because I made them at the same time as I made the eyeballs. Sorry. They are literally just made out of translucent polymer clay and then given a light dusting of paint just to make them slightly different to each other. I originally painted everything green and then absolutely hated it. So then I repainted it into like this nice dark hue instead, and I much prefer that. Yeah, the green just felt too alive for me. So I went over in this dark blue, and then yeah, I much prefer it this way. This was my attempt at making bubbles to go on the top of my cauldron. I am mixing like a limey green hue of UV resin and then dropping it onto a silicone mat and then curing it straight away so that it stays kind of in that just dropped bubbly state. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit of UV resin into the top of my cauldron and add my little bubbles in one at a time. And I'm also going to add like these tiny little, I don't know, shiny nail decorations, like for nail art, that I have these things. I'm going to sprinkle those in top to give it like a bubbly cauldron effect. Now, I wasn't planning to be able to put this little glass dragon eye in there. It just, by some miracle, some happy little accident, it fit in perfectly. Then I literally went on to glue everything down and then add in a few little diorama-y bits, you know, some grass and, you know, that kind of sort of stuff. Once I glued down all of my tiny little pumpkins, I went on to make my own leaves. I did that by painting a piece of paper and then using this leaf cutter to literally make loads of autumnal leaves. I glued those all down and then added in like some grasses and stuff like that, and that was Whisp completely finished. If you are still here, thank you very much for taking the time to watch me make my wonderful little Whisp. I hope you have enjoyed. And please do take a moment to subscribe if you are new to the channel. I do love a new subscriber. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you in the next video, guys. Bye!